Hey guys, so we've gone and done it again. We got another Mog. Alright, so it's been a few weeks since we brought this here, and I really haven't even looked over this a whole lot yet, because this was not something I was planning on right now, but it showed up and I really couldn't afford not to buy this, because even if it is a complete heap and we can't get the engine running, there is a lot of good parts on this. And also, this still has its original paperwork, and that in itself is worth quite a lot. So let's just take a look around this and see what we actually got. So this is yet another Unimog 421, but this one is from 1973, I believe. So it's a little younger than the other one that I have, but the funny thing is these were actually part of the same barn find. They were sitting side by side in the barn for many years. Now this one, before I got involved, this was sold off to another guy. He obviously had plans to get this running, but I'm not entirely sure how much they've already done. A lot of it has been disassembled, and they told me that they never got it running. And they kind of figured out, well, it wasn't really their thing anyway, so it was sort of just set aside, and then I got my hands on this. So that's going to be a little interesting to see what they've already done, and to see if there's a good reason they couldn't get it running. So right off the bat, the cabin is really bad on this one. It's very rusty. You can see a lot of it is just paper thin. And all the stuff on the back side here that was supposed to have like a support all the way around, it's just completely gone. And like I said, a lot of it has been disassembled. They took the windows out. Actually, everything on the inside has been removed. A lot of the stuff under the hood has been removed, and I can tell they removed the bolts from the rear attachment points of the cab. So I'm thinking they tried to get the cab off, but looking at the front attachment, it doesn't look like these bolts were ever taken out, so I don't think the cab was off. Oh, that bushing is completely gone. Anyway, disregarding the cab, everything underneath is actually looking really good. The entire frame, the axles, and all that stuff, it's all looking really good, and it's all intact, so I'm really happy with that. But for some reason we have 4 different tires on this, so this one's not even the right size. There's been a lot of rust work over the years in this cab, and it's just not done very well. So the cab is almost a total loss. Battery box is gone, along with the step that should be out here. Get in here. Someone's put a new clutch cylinder on this, but looks like it was never actually hooked up to any lines. Lines for the air lockers, that actually looks a little odd. That doesn't look like this was any of their work. This has been disconnected for a long time. It doesn't have a rear PTO, it does have the front one. It does have all its handbrake components still in place. Again, more of the very rusty cab. For some reason they've extended these supports of the cab. I mean, this middle part, that's not supposed to be there. So the whole cab is kind of sitting at a weird angle. I'm not really sure why they would do that. Air tank is looking almost new. This is kind of hilarious. Instead of a drain on the air tank, they added this little faucet. Has a very crudely made exhaust that's also that's completely come apart. Some homemade rear fenders, a little overkill on the size, but whatever. Then there's this whole tow hitch, tow hook contraption. That is, I mean, I guess it works, but if you're going off-road, that is just gonna be a plow. Look at how much lower that is than the differential. Anyway, same story back here. All the undercarriage is actually looking really good. And the bed itself is actually looking really good as well, so I don't have to build a new one for this. Even this detachable plate, it still looks like it's sitting in the right way and it's still being detachable. It is, however, missing the hydraulic cylinder for the tipping of the bed. And actually, looking at it now, there's not even any hydraulic lines running back here, so that's probably why the cylinder is missing, because there's nothing to hook it up to. But yeah, the bed itself, it's looking reasonably straight and not very rusty, so that's all good. Fuel tank, that is actually looking really good. It's firmly in place. It's not rusty at all. It even still has the original mounting. Wow, okay. Now that is a hole. Look at that. I have never seen a manifold crack like that. There is a bolt missing up here, so I'm guessing they tried to get this manifold off. Looks like the terminals on the starter, they've been mangled quite a bit. They have attached just cables directly up here. There's a positive wire just running directly up here, and they have the negative wire back here. So I'm guessing the original wires were completely cut along with the battery box that's missing. Now something's definitely been nesting in here. Right, so like I said, a lot of it has already been disassembled. The air filter box has been removed. All of this belt drive has been disassembled, or at least disconnected. The radiator and most of the other cooling system is gone. The hydraulic tank and a lot of stuff for that is gone. I actually don't know if we can get in there and see the hours on this. No, it's a little too foggy. I can't make that out. Brake booster and the clutch cylinder and all that, it's actually not looking too bad. These are usually just completely rusty, but this is not bad. It does have the original 2 outlets for the hydraulics on the front, but for some reason these 2 are the ones that should run to the back to the tipping cylinder, but they've just been replaced with some other couplings for something else. Very rusty. A lot of things has been disconnected and disassembled. They've disconnected this part for the throttle. Or actually, maybe, I don't know. We'll get to looking at that. Looks like someone did something with the injectors. It's gonna be interesting to get into this and see if we can get it to turn or if it's just completely locked up. I don't know. Also, this piece right here, that is actually the cover for the vent in the roof, but as we were driving it home, it actually came off in one side, so it was just held on by one of those tiny pins, so we had to jump up and just get that ripped off and throw it in here, just to avoid that flying off into traffic. It says 162,000 kilometers. Now that is a long way to drive in one of these Unimogs. rust. We've seen this by now. And here's those cables I was talking about. This running directly to the starter and this running just ground to the engine. I don't know if all the levers on the gearbox work, but it looks like it's all intact, so there's a good chance we can get it to move. Now before this was painted red, it was this orange color, and before that it was this yellow color. And that yellow color is actually the same that was on the inside of my other Unimog. And I know that they are from the same area, so I suspect they were actually purchased by the same company originally. Right, so that was the quick rundown on this. Now a lot of it is looking really bad, but there's actually a lot of stuff on this that's looking really good as well. So let's just get this up and see if we can actually get this engine to turn, and even if we can get it running. I should probably just say that I did get all the parts that they took off this thing. I have it all sitting on a pallet in here. So this is not going to be nearly as extensive as when we were starting the other 421. Mainly because so much of it is already taken off. So to get in here and crank the engine manually, I don't really have to take much off. I just have to remove this fan that has a really big nut on it as a spacer. Okay. Anyway, I just want to get in and crank it just manually just to see if it turns freely. But I'm pretty sure the guys that I got it from have already been cranking the engine, so I'm not gonna bother with going in and lubricate the cylinders and all that, because at this point it doesn't really matter anyway. So once we've confirmed that it actually spins over freely, we're gonna go and see if we can get that starter to actually work. And then we're gonna have to go in and hook up some kind of fuel supply, because this doesn't really work. And also, I will not be driving this anytime soon, because this is not really a priority, and also there's a lot of parts missing before you can actually drive this. The clutch isn't even hooked up and all that stuff. So I'm not really gonna be bothering with putting new oil in it. It does have oil in it, and it's not looking terrible, so we can run with this just for this startup. Because if I do get it running, I will only be running it for a few seconds because there is no cooling on it. But I am just going to be putting some fresh oil into the distribution pump, because these are so old they have separate oil in this. And it doesn't look like anyone has touched this cap in a while, so I'm guessing there's nothing in here. Let's see. Yep. Took a little bit to get going. Nothing feels rough. Actually feels pretty smooth. And I do feel the compression in there. So that's good. And we're already pumping some fuel. Whatever's left in the hoses and pumps. Nice. So I'm just going to be hooking up the negative wire for now, and then I'll run a little positive wire down here so I can manually check if that relay on the starter is even working. So now let's see if I can actually hold these two on there and activate the relay. And nothing. Alright. So the relay is clicking, but we're not getting any connection between the two terminals. So I'm just going to go ahead and hook the positive wire directly to this bottom terminal. That is straight into the starter. That means as soon as I'm going to put it on the battery, it's going to be cranking the starter. Okay, so if this starter actually works, then as soon as I'm gonna hook up this cable, it's gonna draw a lot of amps, so that's gonna create a lot of sparks. So I don't really want to do it directly at the battery. Not only is that not very safe, but it also ruins the terminal. So I'm just gonna use my jumper cables to make an improvised starter switch. Okay, so let's see if it does anything. Now I'm gonna be doing this off camera because this is gonna create a lot of sparks, and there is already quite a bit of fuel over here, and it's probably gonna be squirting out some more, so I'm just gonna step back a little. Okay, so it did crank. Now that's actually really nice. And it did sound like it had some compression, but I wasn't really impressed with the speed of this. It was cranking really slowly. And the battery I put in here should be fully charged, but I just went ahead and hooked up another one to double the amps, just to be sure that this is not what's holding us back. Alright, so let's just give it another try. And again, I'm gonna do this a little further back. Well, seems like we lost the drive on the starter motor. Okay, so I'm done trying with this one. I don't want to waste any more time on that. It is super easy to replace. It's just 2 bolts back here. And since the other 421 is in pieces, I do have the starter from that just laying around. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw that on here. Okay, so now that I have this starter on, I can also use this relay because I know that works. So that's going to be a little more controlled. So I hooked up a blue wire to activate that relay, and I put this gray wire directly on the positive of the battery. So now it's just a matter of taking the gray wire and put it on the blue wire, and nice. That sounds much better, and it's much faster. Okay, so let's go ahead and hook up some fuel. Now, these two are just the return lines. This one coming from the pump, joining the one on the filter, and then running back to the tank. I'm not really concerned with those. This one is the one coming from the tank. But this is about the worst type of line that you can use to make a fuel line. This will leak, they always do, and it will be sucking some air into the system. That's what we don't want. But also, I don't want to just replace this because I don't want to fill the tank on this because, like I said, I'm not going to be driving it anytime soon. So I'm just going to hook a hose directly to the pump here and stick that right down into a jerry can. And I'm also going to go ahead and replace these plastic hoses. They have been tinkering with them a little because they are both just taken off. But this is also a pretty terrible hose. You can see how easily this comes off. So that is very likely to leak some air in as well. So I'm going to replace these things and we're going to see if we can pump this and bleed the air out of it. Also, I don't know what's been running through this, so I'm just going to go ahead and give it a set of new fuel filters. They're pretty inexpensive and I have them in stock. And then we'll be sure that there's plenty of flow through this filter console. Yeah, they are looking pretty bad. They've definitely not been changed in a long time. Ooh, look at that. That's had some water in it. It's all rusty. Yeah, that is really bad. Let's see if we can pump something up here. There we go. I don't think this pump is working. That's not working. Let me get another one. Okay, so let's just try this again. That feels better. Hey, there we go. All right, let's just fill this one. Ew. On the arm. Okay, so we have a fuel setup going here now. It is just sucking directly from that jerry can into the pump. And I did go ahead and reroute this return line because I don't want it to be pumping all the excess fuel into the fuel tank, so it's just running back here into the jerry can. Okay, so there is no solenoid valve to be wiring open on this. It is all just done mechanically in the pump. And usually it's this first bit of travel here, like right here, it's gonna be closing off the fuel, and here it's gonna be open. I can't really feel it, so it might be that the rod in here is stuck. But I think we're just gonna wire it down with a little bit of throttle, and we'll just see what happens. That should be good. So now I'm just gonna crack loose some of these fuel pipes running to the injectors. Then we're gonna crank the engine and hopefully see some fuel coming out of these pipes. And if that happens, we'll tighten them back up and we should be able to crank it again, and then hopefully something will happen. This wasn't even tight. Neither was this one. Okay, let's give this a go. Alright, so it seems like we're not getting any fuel through the distribution pump. I kind of suspected as much, since I can't feel that stop in there is opening. It's not supposed to just be wiggly and loose here. You should be able to feel and hear it moving that stop in there. But it is just a rod that it's moving in here. I suspect that's just stuck, so let's just get in there and see if we can loosen that up. So this is probably why they were trying to take the cab off, because that's really what you should do, or at least lift it, because there's not a lot of room to get in here and work on this stuff. I can't really even film it, so bear with me. Alright, well there's really not very much room in here, but it is looking really bad in there. See how much dirt is in there? It should have been pretty clean in there. And that rack there with all those little screws on it, that's what's supposed to be moving back and forth. But when I move the throttle here, you can see there's just a tiny bit of movement on it, but that's all I'm getting. I have tried to pry it a little, but it's not moving any more than this. So I think I'm gonna try and knock it back and forth a little maybe. But yeah, it's not looking very good for this pump. Wow. This is very stuck. Okay, so I've been knocking that rod back and forth quite a few times now. It is supposed to just move freely in there, but that is really stuck. It's still not loose, but it is moving now, and I've just gone and pounded it all the way to the fully open side, so let's just go ahead and crank it again and see if we're even pumping any fuel through this now. Alright, so I've been trying for quite a while now, and I'm only getting a tiny bit of fuel out to cylinder 3 and 4. There's absolutely nothing coming out to cylinder 1 and 2. So I suspect there's quite a few more things stuck in that fuel pump. The problem is there is just no room in here. I would really like to get in there and see what's really going on. Now, of course, the right way to get to that would be to just lift the entire cab. But even though this is fairly taken apart, it's still quite a big job, and I don't have anything to lift this with right now. And really, I just don't want to be turning all of this into a really long project right now. I just want to get in and see if all of this stuff even works, or at least has a chance of working. But I just figured this entire cab is really not worth anything anyway, so it actually doesn't matter if I just go ahead and make a little surgical incision right here. Oh, look at how much room we have now. Now we can actually get in here and see what's going on. So this rod here, that's what was stuck in the halfway closed position. It's still not moving freely, but it is moved all the way forward, so that means it is open and it should be letting fuel into the actual pumps. But what I wanted to see was to see if the pumps down here are actually getting moved by the cam, because I'm only getting fuel out of these two rear ones, and even then it's not very much. It's definitely not enough, and I'm not getting anything out of the two first ones. So it could be that these pumping elements are just not moving at all. Let's just give it a try again and see how much of this is actually moving. Okay, so we could see that these last two ones, they were pumping, and that makes sense because we were getting a little bit of fuel out of those. But this one is definitely stuck, and it's stuck all the way up, so I'm gonna try and see if I can move that a little and maybe get it to fall down. And the first one, that was actually pumping, but we're just not getting any fuel through that, so that's a little interesting. Okay, so I've been trying a bunch of different things for a while now, and I just can't get anything in there to move. There's just way too much dirt and debris and stuff in there that is locking everything up. And also, I suspect that the rod that this throttle is supposed to move, there's another rod up here that actually controls how much fuel is going into the pumping elements. I'm thinking that's probably stuck as well, and that's probably why we're not really getting any fuel through this. So it would seem there really is a good reason why the other guys couldn't get this running. Alright guys, I am just gonna have to call it at this point. It's a bit of a letdown because I really wanted to get this thing going, but as long as we're not getting anything through that pump, it's just not going to happen. So I'm either gonna have to get the pump off and get it refurbished, or get a replacement pump for it. Either way, it's gonna cost more than I paid for this entire thing, so I'm gonna have to think about what I'm actually gonna be doing with this now. But actually, I'd like to know what you guys think. I always enjoy reading all your comments and suggestions, so let me know. Where do you think this should go from here? So thanks for watching, and we'll see ya.